just learned 3 new exercises, and now we'll put them all together for a low-impact combination. Combinations are a great way to add variety to aerobic exercises. Remember to keep your back straight and your neck and shoulders relaxed throughout these exercises.
Welcome back. Now, we just had an opportunity to see a different approach to exercise, and I wondered if any of you, if you had a comment about that.
Oh, I thought in terms of an exercise tip, it was much better. Two of the things that I noticed real quickly is that they sort of summarized what the students had just learned, so that was kind of nice. And also they provided some safety cues, you know, to watch your posture, watch your back, and things like that. And you'll find that your better tapes tend to do that. They focus more on the individual and less on having you bounce all over the living room.
Okay, so, and also the idea that that variety. I noticed she kept mentioning the word aerobically, and I'm wondering if you could kind of elaborate for us about what aerobic exercise actually is. I mean, does it mean I have to go to a stair-step class, or what is it exactly?
Aerobic activity can take any number of forms. Basically what you're doing is you're using the large muscle groups in your legs, and you are doing an exercise in a rhythmic way. You're doing it continuously for a long period of time, which means that you're not going all out. A lot of people feel that they have to go to a gym class and they have to kill themselves, and if they're not completely red and just, you know, drenched with sweat, that they are not somehow working out effectively, and most of these people are not working out effectively. You should be able to do activities like aerobic dance, bicycling, swimming, jogging, even power walking can be aerobic as long as you push yourself. It's just a matter of getting out there, getting your heart moving, drawing more breath, raising your body temperature a little bit, and keeping at it for anywhere from 20 minutes on up to about an hour.
Okay. Yeah, because I know one of the other side effects of pushing ourselves too hard is injury. And I'm sure that comes up for people where they feel like they need to, as the, what is the statement, go for the burn or whatever it is, and wind up, you know, pulling hamstrings and that
That's
sort
right.
of thing.
That's the concept of no pain, no gain.
Right.
And we're definitely moving away from that very macho attitude towards exercise.
Well, that is exciting to hear. I might actually start to get interested. Okay, now, Maxine, you had prepared for us some nutritional guidelines, and I'm wondering if we could take a first look at your list for us on do's and don'ts.
Okay.
Let's see.
Do listen to your body. When you're tired, sleep. When you're thirsty, drink water. When you're hungry, eat real food.
Okay, let's talk a minute about what real food is. Okay, if we're saying that nicotine and caffeine and maybe NutraSweet are fake foods, why don't you tell me a little bit about what real food is? What do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes it's easier to say what it's not, but generally speaking, the things that they talk to you about when you were a kid, like eat your vegetables, you know, have wheat bread, eat fruit, that sort of thing. Nutritious meals. Now there is more understanding that we need whole grain foods and not prepared foods. So many of the packaged foods that you see in stores have things added to them that may enhance their taste, but it's not good for you.
Okay.
If you look for sugar, for example, on nutritional labels, you will find that sugar is added to many of the foods that you buy in the store.
Okay.
And you don't need that. Our body does not need more sugar than it gets from a good, healthy diet.
Well, in fact, eating carbohydrates converts to natural glucose, doesn't it?
Right.
So if I had pasta, for example, I mean, tell me if this is correct, I'm not sure, but you know, something like eating pasta would provide my body with the natural sugar it needed as opposed to eating a Frosted Flakes, for example.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's true, but pasta and grains and things like that, vegetables, are going to come more from a family of foods that have complex sugars in them or complex carbohydrates. And how it assimilates into your body, it takes much longer time. It will provide you more energy over time, and it won't provide you with that spike that you get when you eat simple sugars. And also some fruits can do that as well. So if you're trying to eat healthy, I always try to encourage people to focus on vegetables, grains, and pastas.
Okay.
And for a lot of people, they already like those, so
That's
it works
right.
out pretty well.
That sounds actually very edible to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds very positive.
Definitely.
Going back
Good.
to one of the items that was on that list, when you're hungry, eat real food. So often, we will grab a cup of coffee or a candy bar out of the machine because it's handy, it's there, and that's the wrong thing to do, unfortunately. It takes care of your hunger at the moment, but that's what gets you out of balance.
Yes.
And you will be left in worse shape than you were if you hadn't eaten anything.
So once again, it gets back to preparation, which means I need to have an apple available because a lot of vending machines, you know,
Right.
of course,
They don't
sell
have
things that are good for you.
Right.
Now, part of what I was thinking about with the sugar is that one of the things we talk about in recovery, for the recovering people who might be watching, I know that in early sobriety, we're often encouraged to eat quantities of sugar because alcohol is sugar-based. So the idea is you address cravings with a lot of sugar. And I'm wondering, working in a treatment facility as you do, if you have come up against that philosophy.
Unfortunately, that is there. In the original 12-step programs, they encouraged people to have sugar, have coffee, anything to, you know, boost them up. And now we know that those are enemies of true recovery, because the person in recovery, especially in the early time, the first few days, the first few weeks, they're going through enough ups and downs without having their body play tricks on them.
Okay.
You know, the blood sugar graph that we saw illustrates how your blood sugar can go up and way down. And if you repeat that during the day, how can you concentrate on staying sober?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would like to comment on that, just that I think many people in early recovery are going to consume a lot of sugar because it's replacing the sugar and the alcohol. So in some ways they are replacing something that they were already consuming. And I know that there's some controversy now in the recovery houses about, do you just detox people from the drugs and the alcohol, or do you try to do everything at once and take away the cigarettes and the sugar and the salt and everything else? And I'll leave that controversy out there, but I will comment that Bill W., towards the later years of his sobriety, consulted with a Dr. Hoffer, and that's where he learned a lot about nutrition himself. So while he had, in the many early years of his own recovery, abused caffeine and sugar and cigarettes and things like this, he kind of converted in some ways to adopting this better nutritional philosophy and actually proselytized it to a certain extent as in the latter years of his own sobriety. And Bill also struggled a lot with issues that are sometimes related to food, things like depression and anxiety and sleeplessness, insomnia, and things like that. And he felt that there were perhaps some nutritional solutions to those problems, or partial solutions.
And I would imagine also exercise. I mean, in terms of stabilizing ourselves, that also includes, I'm sure, getting enough sleep. And I think my understanding is that exercise can really help with that, with insomnia, and help with our natural desire to get it back into a normal REM sleep
Absolutely.
cycle.
In my own experience, I have used exercise for probably the primary reason I've ever used exercise is to control my stress. I can be a bit of a type A personality and get going, but I've also found that it helps with depression, anxiety, just dealing with anger, and people who exercise on a regular basis and do aerobic activity definitely have better sleep patterns. You definitely sleep harder at night.
Well, that's a good argument.
I was just going to say, there's this too. If someone drinks coffee in the evening, it takes time for that to be processed by the body, and it's going to interrupt sleep patterns. This is well documented in your in your references on pharmacology.
But then again, I'll be the devil's advocate because I have at least 2 friends who always swear that they drink coffee at night and it doesn't bother them a bit and they sleep just fine. You know, now I think that we can get tolerance to just about anything, and that could be what that is. But it's interesting that when we're talking about this, I know that in general, for a lot of people, defensiveness does come up. It's sort of like, well, but I know that I can do it somehow differently, you know, because it really doesn't apply to me, or my great aunt used to do it this way. And it's interesting. I mean, what's your take on the defensiveness in general that we experience about this topic? I mean, do we feel somehow judged, or like, you know?
I think it's human. You know, do what I do. You know, what I do is okay because this is what I've done, and I haven't done it otherwise. People do what they know how to do.
That's true.
And if they haven't tried another way, or have it become a habit, the exercise habit you spoke of, then they will assume that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I would also argue that people are individuals, and there's all these different researchers out there. Coffee's good for you, coffee's bad for you, wheat is good for you, milk is bad for you, whatever it is. And I would say, every individual has their own experience with it, and they're going to know. And also look at the research. I mean, is this a test group of 15 people, or is this a test group of 1,500? So, and I think that you also bring up a good point about that people have always done it a certain way, and I think that if you have sort of negative habits which don't contribute to you feeling your very best, you may not know any other way of feeling.
That's true. That kind of feeling a little bit dragged out could be a normal feeling for you. Just say, well, I'm a low energy person.
That's right. And I used to believe that about myself. I used to believe that I had no energy, and I wasn't interested in like backpacking and sports which required a great deal of energy. And what I found was once I got into shape, a whole new world opened up to me. I was amazed that there were all these activities and people to do them with that I never even realized were there before.
Well, that is a hopeful note for us to close on. I want to thank you both for being with me tonight.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for joining us. Join us next week as we learn about men and eating disorders. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.